All right, so welcome back to part 2 of the digestive system, which is going to be focused on anatomy and how the actual anatomy and organs of the digestive system can complete some of the functions we talked about last time. So first off, we've got just an overview of the organs included in the digestive tract. So we have starting at your mouth is going to be the actually beginning of the digestive system, and it's going to work your way down through your pharynx or your throat, your esophagus, down into your stomach, as well as then through your small and large intestine. And we're also at the end going to mention a little bit about glands because they have a somewhat important part of kind of the digestion and breakdown of some of the materials going through your digestive system. But we'll be going through these in order and kind of taking it step by step about what's happening as food is moving through each of these organs. So again, we'll start off with the mouth. So the start of your digestive system, obviously this is going to be involved in ingestion. We talked about last time how that's taking in food and drink. So again, it has to get into your body somehow. But digestion is also going to start here. And as we mentioned a little bit last time, we've got kind of two forms of digestion. So chemical digestion is when we have enzymes breaking down the food. So we have in your mouth, your saliva has enzymes in it to help break down carbohydrates. And of course, you're also hopefully chewing your food to break that down into some smaller pieces. So this would be considered mechanical digestion, where you're physically breaking the food down into smaller and smaller pieces. And why you might want to do that? Well, one, you don't want to choke on your food. That's never a good thing. But two, the whole point of this is we want to get this broken down into those molecules, right? We're trying to get those carbs, those lipids, those proteins. And so we want to make sure that we're breaking these things down fairly efficiently and quickly. So this will help increase the surface area. So by the time it's getting to your stomach, we've got pretty small pieces that will digest fairly quickly.
And you can test out that chemical digestion in the mouth. If you've ever gotten, like, you can put a sucker in there, carbohydrate, right? And it'll eventually just melt away almost. But if you put in, say, like a hunk of meat gets stuck in your teeth, like you get a little string, you're eating pulled pork or something, that could be there like 3 days later if you don't brush your teeth and take care of yourself like you really should. If you've ever found something in there 3 days later, you're brushing and flossing wrong. So, but anyway. Yeah.
That's your health message of the presentation.
I'm sure there'll be more.
There probably will be.
From there, from the mouth, we're going through the pharynx and then to the esophagus. So pharynx is just the fancy anatomy term for your throat. I guess we didn't talk about respiratory this time. Your respiratory system, because you can breathe through your mouth too, shares the pharynx, the throat, with your digestive system. So there's a little flap in the, in the throat that covers up your trachea, the part that goes down into your lungs, and make sure that food and drink go down into the esophagus and then into the stomach as part of the digestive system. And one of the reasons, I guess, bring this up is if food gets lodged because you're not chewing it well enough, not that enough physical breakdown of the food, that if food becomes lodged in your pharynx, in your throat, that can block your airway as well, because they're sharing that tube for a little while. And that's what happens when someone is choking. You do the Heimlich maneuver and dislodge the food. But anyway, so the pharynx is the junction between the esophagus and the trachea. The epiglottis covers up the trachea, preventing food from going down into your lungs. And then past the pharynx, the esophagus is just a long tube that moves food from your throat on down to your stomach. Ringed with muscles that contract. It's a process called peristalsis. They're wave-like contractions. If you kind of think about moving toothpaste through a toothpaste tube, you kind of squeeze the outside and move your fingers along, and that pushes the toothpaste out. Something similar happens with your esophagus. The muscles contract behind the food, and then that contraction moves on down to slide it through. Stomach then is the next stop on the journey. The stomach is If you think about the digestive system as a long tube that runs from your mouth all the way to the other end, your anus, the different parts of it, apart from the accessory glands that I believe Mr. Hamele will be talking about later on, liver, pancreas, so forth, that the food is traveling through this tube, and the different organs are just kind of different sections of that tube. Your stomach is kind of, you can think of it like a ballooning out. There's a closing at the top of your stomach and a closing at the bottom. That's accomplished by some muscles, sphincter muscles that close off or pinch off the two ends of the stomach. That prevents food from coming back up into your esophagus and potentially out of your mouth. If you have acid reflux or heartburn, that sphincter isn't closing all the way and you're getting some of that stomach acid and food kind of coming back up into the esophagus. And then the other end is closed off before it heads into the small intestine. That makes sure that food spends an adequate amount, enough amount of time in your stomach where it is being exposed to gastric juices like hydrochloric acid, which helps break down food, and pepsin, which helps break down proteins. It's an enzyme. We talked about enzymes in the macromolecules unit as well. Speed up chemical reactions, chopping up proteins into their building blocks, amino acids. The stomach itself is protected from this these digestive juices by secreting a layer of mucus around the cells, and that prevents the hydrochloric acid and the enzymes from eating away at your stomach's own cells. And if you've ever had or know someone who's ever had stomach ulcers, that's when that lining wears a little bit thin due to bacterial infection, and your stomach kind of starts digesting itself. There is still some mechanical digestion going on inside the stomach. The stomach is very muscular and it will squeeze from multiple directions and angles. I kind of picture it like kneading dough. You like squeeze the food that's in your stomach, which is all chewed up and gooey right now, mushes it one way, and then it mushes it another way, and then it mushes it another way. And that helps physically break down the food a bit more. There are some additional terms in here. The bolus is the food that you swallowed. It's kind of like if you have an older brother or sister who chews their food and then like shows you, it's filled with spit and it's all mushy, and then it goes on down into the stomach. When it mixes with the stomach acid and the digestive enzymes, it becomes something called chyme. Let's see here. Once it's done its thing in the stomach, or the stomach has done its thing, the stomach is going to contract. That lower opening is going to open up, the lower sphincter, and the food is going to move from the stomach into the first part of the small intestine. Your stomach doesn't do a whole lot of that last step that Ripley mentioned in the previous video, absorption, but some of the things that are absorbed in the stomach include alcohol and aspirin. You'll see the majority of absorption happens later on in the digestive tract.